I start with the Last Supper because it's somewhere where I don't hear people go, but it seems so clear and is a much better place to start. Like there's like two reasons why I don't start with Matthew 16. Number one is I think that it reduces the debate where people think it all just comes down to, well, you think this, I think that, this father thinks this father thinks that, on interpreting like upon this rock. And that's way overly simplified. But second, it's because I think it can lead to a distorted understanding of the papacy where it's just about power and kind of a secular understanding of power. Luke 22 is going to purify that because at the Last Supper, the disciples are arguing about which of them is the greatest. Like they're falling into the same trap we fall into, thinking about power in these very kind of worldly, secular ways. And Jesus does a few things in order. Number one, he calls them out for this, and he tells them not to rule the way the Gentiles do. But number two, he affirms that they really do have this kind of leadership to rule. The root word in Greek there is where we get words like hegemony, like it's power, and then he ensures that this is actually like a perpetual institution. This isn't a one-off. He talks about them continuing to rule on 12 thrones in heaven, but he tells them that they should rule as servants. And he says, behold, I'm among you as one who serves. So that's number four. Like he lays out what true Christian leadership looks like. That yes, you are leaders, but don't be like Gentiles. Be servant leaders, to use kind of the modern parlance. That to be an authority is to lay down your life for the ones that you are called to serve. That's what Christian authority and Christian leadership looks like. But then the kicker is he then turns to one of the 12, Simon Peter, and says, Simon, Simon, Satan has desired to sift all of you like wheat. And I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brethren. So if I could, I'd like to unpack that a little bit. First of all, like Satan's after all 12 of them. He's already gotten Judas. He's after the rest. And so you might expect Jesus's response to be to, I'm going to use my divine power to solve this immediately. Or barring that, you might expect him to at least say, I'm going to pray for all 12 of you, and Judas needs it the most, but all of you are going to abandon me in one way or another between now and tomorrow. But he doesn't do any of the things that I would have done in that situation. He does something radically different, where he chooses Simon Peter and says that he's going to pray for him specifically. And in the Greek, you have this switch from the you plural, the you all, you 12, to the singular, like you Peter, you Simon Peter. And so he prays for the one. But then second, he does this with an acknowledgement that Peter is still going to fall. So that's included within this idea that when you have turned back, strengthen your brethren. He's not just saying the Pope is the Pope because he's going to do everything right. He's not just saying, like, I'm going to give you this premised on you never making mistakes or never, like, he's alluding to probably the worst thing any Pope has ever done throughout all of history, which is deny Christ 3 times.
Wow.
I've
never thought of it like that. I think when we read the story, where we feel I do at least, feel sympathetic towards Peter, because you can tell he's got a big heart, and that the stakes are high. Like if he admits he himself may be persecuted, but you're right, it's a terribly awful thing to do. Like if Pope Francis today denied Christ 3 times, there would be a lot going on Taylor Marshall's YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think I would jump over there for a little bit
and rightly
until I got frustrated. So that kind of idea is huge. So he's including that within the understanding of the papacy, that there's always this idea that Peter isn't just the rock, he's also the stumbling block.
Oh, yeah. So we can get to that later unless you want to get into it here. I found that fascinating.
I'll allude to it. I'll just put a pin in it to say, we'll get back to that. But then very clearly he says, strengthen your brethren, right? Like, what does he just said? He says, to lead is to serve. All of you are to serve the church. Peter, you're to serve the rest of the apostles. Like that kind of idea is where we get this idea of servant of the servants of God. That is, I think, the number one best way of understanding the papacy. That if you understand that Christ creates leaders in the church to serve the church, like the idea of priest is offering sacrifice is pointing to the idea that power is for service. Like it is to offer sacrifice and to make a sacrifice of yourself for your people and for God's people. And then Peter is called to serve even those who serve. Like that's the crux of what the papacy is in a nutshell. If that's true, if Peter is given that role, that's what we're trying to say with the papacy. And you could almost say, and nothing more, because it really is very little more than that. Because if that's true, that's everything we've been arguing for. Whether the Pope should wear a tiara or whether he should wear this side of the, everything else is just relatively meaningless on the question of, okay, Is someone set up as the servant of the servants of God? And is service the attribute of a leader? If those two things are yes, we've got Peter as the Pope.
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.